Hi, and welcome back to Pint-Sized Guilt-Free Torah. We are in the last 17 years of Jacob's life. We're finishing the book of Genesis, the book of Bereshit. These are years that were very good for Jacob. He lives with his children and grandchildren. Imagine all that nachas. Imagine how wonderful it was. He was in Egypt. His son is second in command. In the physical world, financial world, every world, things are just going great for him. Let's step aside for a minute and look at a halacha, something in Jewish law. When you write a Sefer Torah, a Torah scroll, when you finish a complete section or complete parsha, there's something called psucha. There's a very long space at the end, and then on the next line, they begin the next section. Well, these last 17 years, which would seem to be a unit by themselves, the last 17 years of his life that were spent in a very beautiful and comfortable environment, they would seem to be detached from the rest of Jacob's difficult life. But there's an exception here. Everywhere else in the Torah, there's always a psucha. There's always a space going from one chapter or one section to the next section. But here, there's no space. There's nothing detached. This unit is connected to the previous parsha and basically therefore symbolically connected to the rest of Jacob's life. So what is there to learn here? What's the lesson of the fact that these last 17 years aren't their own personal unit? They're connected to the larger unit of Jacob's life. Rav Shlomo Hirsch comments on this strange way that a Torah is written. There's always a space, and over here there's no space. They seem to be connected. So he writes, when one considers the 17 years which are introduced hereby are really the only one in which Jacob lived a quiet, undisturbed life, so that in comparison with the previous years of his life, they be considered as a real flowering of his life. We should have expected all the more so to find the relation of them to be brought into prominence by starting a fresh new chapter. That means a long space, and now we're starting this fresh new chapter. But the fact that this is not the case teaches us that although these 17 years certainly are to be reckoned with the rest of his life, nationally, they form a lesser important part of it. In other words, the years that Jacob struggled, that is what formed not only his own personal identity, but ultimately the identity, the national identity of the Jewish people. And then he continues, but it was rather the troubled years of his life in which the test had to be gone through, in the midst of the bitterest fate of Jacob to be worthy of acquiring the name of Israel, that those in which Jacob won his everlasting national importance, to which the 17 years that follow here are just a happy, rewarding conclusion. That means Jacob was pursued by his brother Esav. He tried to murder him. Esav was out to kill Yaakov. Then he was at his father-in-law, who was a treacherous and difficult and dishonest person, and he suffered much with his father-in-law. And then his daughter Dinah was abducted, and then his son Joseph, he thought, was dead, and the brothers were quarreling. There's so much difficulty, so many challenges in his life. But he says, Rav Hirsch says, it's those challenges that created who he was. That was his identity, and that created the Jewish identity. So we don't look at the last 17 years, that's a nice chapter by itself, nice ending. No, it's all part of one big picture. We many times think, when I can just have those retirement years, when I can just be on the beach and do what I want to do and drink pina coladas. No, it's the years when you're fighting. It's the years when you're struggling. Those are the years where you form who you are. The years where you're dealing with a difficult child or a difficult parent or some friends who need you. When you're at work and you're not sure, should you stay? Should you leave? The way you're treated is not particular. They're not treating you with respect, and yet you're earning a good salary. What's worth more to me? My own personal respect, the salary, but my family needs the money. Do I need this lifestyle? When you're making those kind of choices, you're really alive. So when you're living, you're creating who you are, because we are in life basically a series of our choices. The choices that we make, that determines who we are. And we're living a life of those choices. That's when we're really living. And so Jacob, these last 17 years, that's nothing new. That doesn't get its own chapter. Just living and enjoying, that's an important thing to do in life. But that's not what created him or created the Jewish nation. So every time we have a difficulty, every time we have trouble, realize we're really living now, we're really creating now, and we're creating something not only for ourselves, but for our family and for all future generations. Because the greater we become, the more we can give over to our children and grandchildren and all the people around us and bring more light to the world. Have a wonderful, wonderful day.